Recording in progress.
Welcome back to another episode of the IHMS podcast show, Power Rankings. This week we have a special guest, first place team, Mr. Ethan McGrady.
Glad to be here.
And per usual, myself, Pablo, and Jake Hamilton.
Hey.
Oh,
Uh, this week we're gonna do something a bit different. We are going to bypass the awards and go straight to the power rankings. We're inching closer and closer to the playoffs. First, we're gonna start with our highest score of the week, which I think this is the first time this season that anyone has gone back-to-back weeks being highest scorer. That sounds about right, Jake?
Yeah, I think so.
And that is Mr. Matthew Gurman, who absolutely took advantage of my very young team. I'm gonna have to call the cops on him for that, but I think his highest points video is an admission of guilt. You guys can tell me. Here it is.
There's really not much you can do when I have the number one defense and the number two kicker. That pretty much seals your fate. And then on top of that, Tony Pollard and Jamal Williams? Nah. Y'all are fucked. This isn't a fluke.
And what did you think about that, Jake? It was an admission of guilt, right?
Who knew having the number one defense and the number two kicker could really carry your team that far? Because clearly that's why he's winning every week.
It is. And on the other end of it, Mr. Remy, our reigning champion, doesn't think he'll get another shot at it. Jake and I have had our conversations. We like his odds of getting back.
There's a trade done with him this week to give him a shot at getting back in there.
Absolutely no collusion involved. Mr. Remy was not a part of the negotiations for that trade.
Speaking for myself, I know Dawson Knox can be a championship piece. So he's got a good team culture from his past.
He's got that DNA.
He's got the winning DNA.
And we'll see what he has to say with his low scoring video. I think it's his second of the season. And here it is.
Well, it doesn't get worse losing to Dumais this week. I pretty much have hit rock bottom. I'm going to give a special shout out to my team. They played as well as the Minnesota Vikings did against the Cowboys. I also want to give a special shout out to Lamar Jackson for, again, being outscored by Andy Dalton, who's on my bench. Another shout out to Michael Carter and Chase Claypool, who went out there and they did a great job with their cardio. Really proud of those boys. I guess I'm going to have to say goodbye to my belt.
We'll see if that trade pushes him up, but it's not looking great for the defending champ. I think the best thing for him, and there's never a bright side, losing to Dumais and being the lowest score, but you and I are playing against each other, and we are his biggest competition for that 8th seed.
Exactly. He's got a cupcake schedule. Me and you have it pretty rough for the rest of the year.
And no matter what, Mr. McGrady here would be glad to play any of the three of us.
I think so.
That's my motivation for the 1 seed right there. Then the opportunity to play one of those esteemed franchises. And
hey, we're all building here.
Exactly. We're building not for this year, but for future years. Except for Remy with his 0 picks.
He's got a young group of Michael Carter.
Again, one's definition of youth is different to someone else.
But we move on now to the fun part of our power rankings, the actual rankings. We were kind of debating 3 rankings this week. Stand-up rankings, which will be coming sooner than later. The cute boy rankings. I know everyone's excited for that, but Jake and I are still working out the kinks.
Yeah.
What a tease.
We got some more analyzing to do before those were
Yeah. We haven't gone through all of our material just and what else did we have? Normal rankings?
Yeah, just normal rankings. I think those were the 2 main ones. I guess one for the future could be rankings of fathers, like potential
Ranking.
fatherhood rankings.
Who would be the best dad right now? Number 14, Tommy Blythe.
He's putting all his kids for adoption immediately.
He's looking for trades in the hospital.
I think he's already offered up naming rights to his firstborn. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think regular rights of his firstborn might not be far away either.
Ethan, that's the question. Do you trade Cooper Kupp for naming rights for Tommy's first kid?
Oh, that's a tough one. And maybe throw in some fab and we have a deal.
How will it impact the playoff race is the real question.
Stay tuned.
We analyze that and more later. But on a serious note, coming in at number 14, just a bit over. Great week. Didn't come in low scoring. Actually won this week. We have Mr. James Dumais. What do you guys take away from his win this week?
I mean, speaking for myself, I look at his roster. I see some good young pieces. I see Eno Benjamin. I see Olamide Zacchaeus. I see Dustin Hopkins. You like the two kicker setup. I like his roster. I like what he's building, and I think the future is bright. Although I actually do really like Traylon Burks, so I do think that's good for him.
He does have that going for him. For me, the big takeaway from this week is he's got a shot in the toilet bowl. There is a chance this man's not doing stand-up, and he proved it this week. So I've got to say, big confidence booster for the team. I think he can. I don't think he's doing stand-up this year. That's my bold take of the week.
I honestly don't see it either. I think there's a lot of fluctuation. But the man's a pro level scouter. Had he kept his team together, have Tyler Algier, Christian Watson, Rashad White, George Pickens, Kadarius Toney,
he'd be looking good.
It'd be a completely different conversation. But I know he's got his sights set on Bijan Robinson. If God allows him to go to the draft, of course.
Yeah, you gotta speak to God first.
Hey, God's got a fantasy team too.
Coming in. Oh, here we go. Coming in, we have tied for 12th. We got Tommy Blythe himself, second lowest scorer this week. He's back to last place in the league. Not great for him. What do you guys think, Tommy Blythe? What's his outlook looking like?
He should trade me James Conner and Mike Evans for Cam Akers, Rams RB1, and a first-round pick to help with the rebuild.
I mean, he should also think about trading me that package, but not for the rebuild. But no, I think it's weird where his team looks decent until you see the bench. That's where it goes downhill. But the actual starting lineup itself isn't too bad. That's why I think the kind of toilet bowl playoffs will be interesting, because all these teams have starting lineups that aren't terrible. It's just a matter of a lack of depth.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Toilet bowl's gonna be fierce competition this year.
It's gonna be a dog fight.
It's gonna be a dog fight.
One thing about Tommy's team, though, looking on that bench, he does have Dearness Johnson, yet another former piece of my organization, and I think he could be an X factor. Dearness and Deshaun are known to have good chemistry, so watch out for that moving forward.
Does he still have that winning culture, the pieces of that winning culture inside of him from his time on your team?
Dearness, we'll find out soon enough, won't we, Jake?
Once Dearness gets unleashed, it's gonna be like Lauri Markkanen on the Jazz. They just have to let him eat.
That's a great analogy, actually. That is good.
Shout out Lauri. But coming in at the other 12th spot, we got reigning champ, lowest score of the week, Remy. I think you and I were both kind of separated on this. And I want to say this too to clarify. Ethan is not the mysterious third voter.
He is not. We only had 2 voters this week because our mysterious third voter was lazy or busy. We won't shame.
Or just being a bum. So but he is not. So he doesn't know. This is the first time he's seen these rankings. He's got no clue. He's just here for his expert analysis. But Remy at 12th, big trade this week. Akers gone. Brought in Dawson Knox and
Latavius Murray.
RB1 for the Denver Broncos, Latavius Murray. Chase Edmonds down. Latavius Murray's new backup, Marlon Mack. We'll see how that impacts Marlon Mack. But realistically, Remy is one of 3 teams that is, I think, or 4 teams that are still mathematically alive in the playoff hunt. We had talked about this before. Right now, the magic number is 7 to get a playoff spot, with the exception of that 8th seed that looks like 6 wins will get you in.
Yeah, 6 wins will definitely do it, I think.
And technically, Big Ricky still has a shot, but needs a lot more. Same with Dumais. Dumais is actually more of a long shot, regardless. But I still think it comes down to Remy, Jake, and myself. But overall, Remy's team could make that final push. Needs a bit more from Lamar Jackson. What do you guys think?
I mean, 2 names to kind of keep an eye out for this team moving forward, looking towards the playoffs. Andy Dalton and Antonio Brown. I think they could have a good combination for his team at the quarterback and receiver position. They're on his bench. They're stashed right now, but come playoff time, I think they could be unleashed. I mean, they were rivals for all those years in the AFC East. Now that they finally team up, I think Remy is in decent position to not lose the losers. But I actually think he's got a chance at making the 8th seed with if he plays his top
I think
guys.
he's winning it all if he makes
I
it
think
in. Pick up Gronk. Who knows?
Check his schedule.
Let's see his schedule. He's got coming up. He's
He's got a cakewalk.
Oh man, he's got some heavy hitters. He opened Ricky fucking Bobby, Officer TC, and Joss. That's it's the big 3. So if he can make it through that tough schedule.
Had he beaten Dumais, his odds would have grown exponentially. Let's just say that. Now with Latavius Murray and Dawson Knox, he's got 2 proven winners. Moving on. Coming in at number 11 is Joss, who would probably be in the 8th seed right now had he started a quarterback 2 weeks ago and actually set his lineup this week. Josh has a very odd team right now, I think is the best way to put it. David Montgomery is now actually going to be a feature back. He has Dalvin. Kenneth Walker's a feature back. He has T-Law, who shows signs every once in a while. Scary Terry just moved to 3rd for reborn Terrence Marshall. I think once he adds another wide receiver next year, I think his team's going to be in a very good spot.
Yeah, I think he's a very good spot, especially still has his draft pick. Next year, he'll definitely be a lot better team. Definitely, I think, kind of back into the playoffs, maybe middle of the playoffs, could definitely make a run. It's looking up for Joss here after, I think, a couple of rough years for him, but he's turning around. The rebuild's almost over.
It's been a rough season for him, but I can't help looking at this roster. I can't help but think that Cooper Kupp could be that guy to take his team to the next step next season. So if you're watching this, Joss, hit my line.
What would you be looking for from Joss from Cooper Kupp? Just his 1st round pick, maybe something more. What are you thinking?
Oh, some a little more. We'd be in private discussions. I wouldn't make those privy to the whole league, but I would never tip my hand. But we could have those conversations.
Moving on, we have another set of ties. The first name up, Mr. Enrique himself. Last week's lowest score. Absolutely went nuclear this week. Gave Ethan a run for his money. Had him sweating for a bit. He got big showings from his main guys. Joe Burrow had over 30. Najee Harris finally had his first great game of the season. Something everyone's probably been waiting for a while. Devontae Adams went off. He got a good game from Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he is really missing Dallas Goedert at that tight end position. But once again, he's got his 1st round pick. He should be out of the playoffs and have a good pick in a very deep draft, top-heavy draft. But this is a team that, you never know what's going to happen. The Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation sucks, but he'll move on from that. I feel like every week we get a different team from Enrique. How was that pressure this week?
It was nerve-wracking, man. His team gave me a good run. He had to have had one of the higher scores in the league this week. I kind of got helped out by Kelsey and McCaffrey at the end, but his team's good. I genuinely think this team is one running back away from being like a legit title level contender. Out of the teams, not like they kind of aren't in the contender range right now. His team's kind of the one where in one off season, this team could become a title contender looking at what he has in place right now. Especially with Amon-Ra and Drake London, who I'm high on both of them.
Yeah, exactly. That receiving core is pretty dangerous. Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra, and Drake London.
And the potential of Odell Beckham.
Future. What do you say?
The potential of Odell Beckham and Dallas
Goedert
being
forgot
healthy.
about that too.
He's put together a good team. It's looking like the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
At the other 9 slot is myself. I'll let you guys take this one. Garbage team.
Trying to desperately hang on to that 8th seed. We don't know whether or not he actually wants that 8th seed or not, or whether he'd prefer the better pick. It looks like he'd probably prefer the pick. As you could probably tell by the trade that went down this week, but pretty solid young team. Definitely.
Yeah, I got Cam Akers for the playoff push.
What do you say?
I got Cam Akers for the playoff push.
Oh,
I had my crystal ball out.
Oh yeah, no, he's a starting Rams running back.
He's RB1.
Worth a very high pick or a very good player. Just hit Pablo up. Yeah, team's looking good. I don't know, Ethan. What do you have?
My takeaway is someone come free Tom Brady. I'm looking at this roster. I don't think there's one person over the age of 25.
Graham Gano.
There's no way Tom Brady's having fun at team meetings and on that team. Someone come get him. It's not going to be me, but someone else.
Tom Brady. Hey, we still got printed newspapers out here.
Yeah. The rest of the lineup, though, some good young talent. Elite quarterback of the future in Justin Fields, past and or future and present. But no, I think the pieces are there for a good rebuild. Plus, he's got 2 first-rounders and draft capital moving forward. So definitely will be interesting.
Nothing more for me.
I mean, there's nothing a little Irv Smith Jr. couldn't do to fix this roster and take it to the next level. But
you mean former player of mine, Irv Smith?
I mean, yeah, you can have him back. We can talk.
Yeah, he already knows the system.
K-Dot is the future. I had to give Tom Brady a teammate of his, so he could talk shop.
Speaking of system guys, Marvelous Marvin Jones could be yours.
Coming in at number 8 is Jake. One of the teams we thought would be a contender has turned into a pretender, barely holding on to dear life. Team finally showed up this week without Etienne, without Raheem Mostert. Chris Godwin looking like a solid trade. Kyler helping with the max PF strats.
Yes, sir. Him and Zach Wilson going crazy.
Jake's team couldn't stay healthy this year. Once again. Jake could be a repeat offender as toilet bowl champion. We'll see.
Yeah, that is a danger I'm facing.
But he also does have 4 first-round picks. I don't really think – 5 now. 5 now after the Debo trade. I don't really think he has much to worry about.
Yeah, no, I look at the team and I just think there's clearly a discord between the players and management. I mean, at the end of the day, you need a better training staff, coaching. I mean, the talent's there. It's just a question mark of why aren't they buying in? And I can't help but think that starts at the top.
Right, I'm firing everyone in the physio room this off season. At one point I had like 9 guys on IR, so it's definitely from there. Management's done the best we could in these hard circumstances, and all I got to say is we'll come back stronger next year. And my job, I'm not on the hot seat.
Speaking of the hot seat, Cooper Kupp would look good on this team right here.
Hey, I sent you a trade about while we're breaking down Tommy's team.
Oh, all right, excellent. All right, we'll be in talks too. We'll be in talks. Got to use my spot on here to make my options available.
Well, Jake, screw you, buddy.
Hey, yep, this is rivalry week.
It is
Whoever wins
rivalry
this week's
week.
in the driver's seat for number 8.
That is the most depressing thing I've ever heard. And depending on if you win, depending on how much you win, I actually might still be in the lead for that AC.
Oh yeah, I forget you have more points for than me. That's pretty embarrassing.
No matter who wins that game, the loser is fantasy football.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, you're the winner there too if you hold on.
Yeah, facts.
Coming in at number 7 is Officers TC. Big win this week against Joss. Bit of a nail biter there too. Joss played 3 inactive players or 2 inactive players, and it was a nail biter. And his quarterback got hurt midway through the game. Another big game by Patrick Mahomes. Jacoby's team obviously held together by Mahomes, Derrick Henry, and Glue, Cordell Patterson. But overall, he has enough to make it to the playoffs. I don't think he has enough to win it all, but I do think any given week he has a team that can put up a lot of points and really upset a team in front of him. We've seen him put up a lot of points before. Christian Kirk can have big weeks. Derrick Henry, Cordell Patterson has had 2-3 touchdown games. Overall, what do you think about the squad?
For me, the Daryl Henderson getting dropped, very bad luck for the squad.
He can come get Cam Akers.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to come get Cam Akers from you. He needs a tight end. His tight end room is looking pretty rough.
Hey, Gerald Everett's just got to get healthy.
Yeah, I don't know how long he's out, but that's not great. But all I gotta say, his recipe to winning, starting Randall Cobb. He's the one of the best receivers of all time. He'll carry him to a Super Bowl title this year, and unlike the Packers. But I think once Juju's healthy, once Everett's healthy, maybe Landry kind of picks up a little bit. He could be frisky in the playoffs. Who knows? We'll see.
Taking a quick look at this team, outside of myself, who obviously I want myself to win the championship. I don't know Officer TC, but I do know Kinetic Kenyon. And Kenyon Drake, cutting him was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. If I don't have the honor of winning this league, I want Officer TC to pull it out for no other reason than getting Kinetic Kenyon the ring that he sorely deserves.
Or Kinetic Kenyon. Coming in at number 6, we have Josh, who's coming off back-to-back losses to keep 2 teams alive in the playoff race. His team struggled yet again this week. Kirk Cousins played awful. He didn't get the usual production from Eckler or Chubb. Mike Williams getting hurt once again hurt him. But on the bright side, Pachenko looks like he has a firm grasp on that number 1 role in Kansas City, and that'll be huge for him. It looks like he's going to get Deshaun Watson back in another week. He'll have Tua against Houston next week, which should be 30 fantasy points at least, if I had to guess. They do have a better pass defense than run defense, so that'll be something to watch. You should start Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert if you have them. Overall, I still think this is a dark horse to win the league. If he's got all his guys healthy and clicking, then I think it's one of the best teams in the league. The problem is they've got to be healthy. Having DeAndre Hopkins helps, but overall, there's still a lot of work to be had.
Yeah, I think the kind of top half of this roster is comparable with any of the top teams in the league. What's gonna kind of be the difference maker is when you look at, for example, the starting receivers right now are Mike Williams and DeAndre Carter. If
Hopkins is in the flex.
Yeah, but even so, if you flip out Pittman and Hopkins, those two just become flex starts for him.
Yeah.
So I think kind of the big question is, can you get enough out of flex production to compete? But the top half, the running backs, just Pittman and Hopkins, they're going to give him a chance to compete. And if Pacheco continues to trend upwards, who knows what he could do.
Facts.
Yeah, definitely a team on the rise. But he's got a lot of strong guys. It's just whether or not they can stay healthy and all contribute each week to give them enough longevity to win the Super Bowl.
Coming in at number 5, Steven. Close win against Tommy. Another close game that had that ended up as an upset would have made it a lot more interesting. Mixon getting hurt is huge for him. We'll check on that update. He didn't have Tyreek Hill this week. They'll have him back and ready to go, the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy. Steven's got an interesting team. I think outside of Tyreek Hill, his receiver position isn't the strongest, but he has 2 very good running backs. And I think as of right now, it looks like Josh and Steven will play each other, and that's an interesting matchup altogether. Actually, no, now it would be Steven and Tom. So that also would be even interesting. What do you think about Steven's playoff chances going forward?
For me, looking at it, it's actually kind of a similar situation to the last team in Josh's team, in that the top 5 guys on this team are good enough where you have a chance no matter what, especially with Tyreek, Mixon, and Jacobs pending health, and Darius Slayton also. Speaking as having Daniel Jones at quarterback, Slayton's been awesome recently, but it's kind of the same thing where I don't know necessarily. The question mark is, will he get enough flex production to compete against one of the heavy hitters worried to get out of the first round? But I do think the talent's there. Speaking of, I know he's beaten my team, I think, every season. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah, no, he is definitely a spot. I think Josh is probably a little better set up than him flex wise, just because injuries have been hitting Stevie J pretty bad so far, with Khalil Herbert on IR. He's got Darren Waller on IR, Bateman out for the season. But it's just whether or not those core top guys can perform like top guys in those crucial weeks for him to be able to keep making it. But I'd probably put him as an outsider in the playoff race.
Yeah, I mean, once again, another team that can really pour on the points any given week. We'll see what happens with that. All you need is just 3 good weeks to win it all, as we've seen the last 2 years now. Coming in at number 4, Tom, whose team is finally starting to get back into shape. We had him ranked this high. Beginning of the year, he's finally starting to look like a team that belongs. Spot start, Samaje Perine got 30 points out of that, really led the way in this upset. Big upset, really shakes up the playoff picture too. Once again, I don't know if he has enough to really push himself over the top. He does have Jeff Wilson. Samaje Perine could be a solid start depending on what happens with Mixon, but Tony had a bad week. Even though there was no
he's
one
on IR now too.
Is he on IR?
Yeah, they put him on IR today.
Oh, jeez. But he still has Brandon Cooks. Keenan Allen looked great once again. I thought he still has AJ Brown.
Debo.
Now he has Debo. Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews, Dak. I thought he had Sky Moore too, but I guess he's in his taxi. So
yeah,
he's got options to play at those flexes, and a really impressive win against Andres. Andres we'll get into in a bit, but this is a team that really is forcing his way with his trade, forcing his way into that top 3, making it into a top 4. He has a bit of a tougher stretch to go, but could make it interesting. What are your thoughts? You right now would project to play him in the second round of the playoffs.
Well, the X factor for this team is going to be Gus Edwards. You heard it here first. If Gus Edwards gets healthy and JK isn't ready to go, Gus Edwards could win Tom a playoff game that he otherwise might not. Don't say I didn't tell you so ahead of time.
Hey, I kind of agree with that point. His running back room is looking pretty questionable now. He's thanking the God that Bijan's asking whether or not he should go pro, that Jeff Wilson got traded to the Dolphins. And because Damian Pierce, I don't know, he might lose some work to Benjamin, Burkhead, I don't know. P. Ryan's not going to do that every week. Leonard Fournette's losing work to White. So he's happy that he's got Jeff Wilson. He's got such a strong receiving core, though. I think he's definitely can upset some teams in the playoffs.
I agree. And if we get the top 4 that we think we'll get, it will be a arms race at that point. Coming in at number 3 after being number 1 for a couple weeks in a row, we have Andres. Tough loss this week. It just didn't click for his team. The guy who did the best this week was Kittle in an already lost matchup. Josh Allen struggled. Good for the Dolphins. Bad for Andres' fantasy team. Justin Jefferson struggled. Not good for anyone. I guess but the Cowboys. We really don't know what we're going to get. Ayuk's fantasy score was a bit inflated by 2 catches that were both touchdowns. Overall, this is still a really good team, but this isn't the first time we've seen this kind of up and down performance. He's had these recently has been able to squeak by in a rather soft league. It'll be a week by week thing with Andres' team. If Josh Allen's injury is legitimate to what they're saying it is, it wouldn't hurt for him to trade for Tom Brady. Just saying.
Or Davis
You
Mills.
can trade for Kyler.
Or Davis Mills.
But overall, I don't see this team not being a favorite, but Damian Harris being back hurts. The uncertainty with DJ Moore and his revolving door at quarterback. Rachaad White, if he ends up being that starter, that's a huge addition, but you don't know how much carries he'll actually get. DK will be back, though. He's got an interesting team. Do we still see him as having as good of odds as Ethan and Emgerms, though?
I would say one swing point and then one comment on his team. For DJ Moore, I think them switching away from Baker traditionally has been good for him fantasy-wise. So we'll see if that ends up playing a factor. Additionally, I do have to note, I consider myself to be someone who follows everything pretty closely. I could not have told you who Raheem Blackshear was. I didn't know who he existed until I just looked at his roster. And so if I've been sleeping on him, I imagine others have too. So don't sleep on Raheem moving forward. I've been snoozing on him. He might come out and be the X factor come playoff time.
He's the Panthers' 3rd string, eh?
Oh, well, you never know. Maybe
a
next
couple
season.
Injuries away. Next
Maybe,
man
yeah.
up mentality.
Hey, that's facts. It happened with Sky Moore. It only took the
Exactly.
entire wide receiver room being hurt. Mine is Justin
Anyway,
Watson.
I think Andres is fine, just a down week. I think he's got the superstars you need. Where Justin Jefferson, this isn't going to happen probably again this season. He'll start putting up 20 every week again. And just with the safety net of Justin Jefferson and Josh Allen and Alvin Kamara, that's going to help his team have a pretty good baseline to beat most teams, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Josh Allen's capable of dropping 30 just because of his rushing attempts, too.
Yeah,
It really
exactly.
does help. Coming in at number 2, we have Mr. Ethan McGrady, the number 1 seed right now, but he's had 2 back-to-back great weeks, but it's tough to discount what obviously our next team did, but Ethan's team really benefited from a trade deadline deal of Christian McCaffrey to the San Francisco 49ers. He had both McCaffrey and his backup Deontay Foreman, who's been up and down, but when he's up, he's up. Complete team. No Cup hurts his chances, but he does have guys who can come in immediately. And Devin Singletary has been great so far. We'll see if he continues getting that workload. Travis Kelce is he's just him. Danny Dimes has been diming it up. Even in a bad real week, he's still been really good fantasy-wise because of the rush attempts. Overall, though, like I had said before, do we see it as a 1A, 1B kind of situation with these two guys?
I think so. Maybe it's a little more bigger of a gap between the 1A, 1B with Cup going down just because he's not a superstar, but it's definitely still 1A, 1B. What I'd say, Ethan's team, it's getting tested the rest of the season with Cup and Ertz. The depth is getting tested with both of them being out for the rest of the year, but it's his team's holding up. Allen Robinson with Cup not there anymore, he's got to step up a little bit and maybe perform. So the depth's there. He's still got a very strong starting lineup with those injuries. It's just maybe if another injury or two pops up, that could really affect Ethan's playoffs.
Listen, the one good thing, you guys may have not seen this. I've got 4 guys out for the season, yet they have been coming into the facility every day, getting the team fired up. Morale is high. I'm not, Cooper Kupp and Ertz being out for the season is big, but it would be bigger if they weren't still showing up, supporting the guys on the sidelines on Sunday, and that's what they did. Also, on a similar note, if anyone's really interested in Cooper Kupp, serious inquiries only, I am making him available.
I will
heard
say
Cooper
this.
Kupp's holding out because he wants to join Lord Ham's Royal Regiment, so he's holding out. Hasn't been shown to the facility the last few days.
I will say this, since we're on a time crunch. I read today the gap between Travis Kelce, tight end 1, to Mark Andrews, tight end 2, is bigger than the gap between Mark Andrews, tight end 2, to Greg Dulcich, tight end 32.
Yeah, I think
Goes to show how elite Travis Kelce is.
I think in PPR, Travis Kelce's the number 2 overall receiver.
And it shows.
So,
that's why you go and grab him. Tommy,
yeah, exactly.
You're an idiot. Coming in at number 1, obviously M. Germs, 193 points this week. Bet me over. It's okay. We're tanking. Obviously, I'm still in the playoff race somehow, but Tony Pollard, if he keeps having games like that, I don't think anyone's beating M. Germs. I think Jamal Williams is the RB1 for Detroit going forward this year. DeAndre Swift is not healthy, and it showed. They don't want him running in the red zone. Jamal Williams is that guy, and every time you have red zone attempts, your odds of scoring big in fantasy just go up. 3 touchdowns against the Giants. No one was going to beat him. As we said earlier, number 2 defense, number 1 defense, number 2 kicker. It's always hard to stop guys when they have such high scoring from that end of the bench too. Thoughts? Your biggest competition here?
I mean, the question is, does he have enough talent at running back? I'm looking at the running back room. I'm not sure if he's got the horses to compete with Devin Singletary.
I'd have to agree. The running back room of Jamal Williams, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon, Swift, Dillon, Elijah Mitchell, Breece Hall, and Chuba Hubbard. That's just not going to cut in a league like this.
I didn't hear Hassan Haskins or Keontae Ingram's name, so I still like my odds.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be hard to compete with that. You'll be lucky to make it out of the first round.
That's what I'm hearing. But that is all the time we have. Ethan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We switched it up a bit this week. I think as we get closer to this playoff race, we definitely do have a gap in the tiers, which we'll be revisiting, I'd assume, closer to the end of the season. But overall, it's still competitive. Everyone's still checking their lineups. Everyone's still making moves, picking guys up, which has been good. Don't forget, there's something much worse than being the loser of this league. It's being the guy no one can rely on in this league. So don't do that. Don't hurt yourself. Any final words? Less than a minute?
No,
Ethan. Nothing I can think of. Thank you, Jake, for all of your contributions.
Welcome, Ethan. As a guest host, we'll let you sign us out.
Oh, from my family to yours, it's been another great week of power rankings with Jake and Pablo. 3, 2, 1,